I'm Theodore McKenzie with Prince George's County Schools. I'm your local stationary engineer, and today we're here to discuss the steam boiler log process. The steam boiler log process is required by Maryland state law for all of our buildings in the county. This is not a county requirement, this is a state requirement. It is the building supervisor and equipment operator's job to ensure that this procedure is completed every morning before schools open. Your boiler logbook should be located on the wall for easy access in your boiler room. It should be on a clipboard, ready to be looked at by a steam boiler inspector or by any Prince George's County personnel if need be at any time. And now we're going to start the boiler log process. Our first inspection on our boiler logbook is record boiler water level in the boiler logbook. This is boiler number 1, so we're going to look under boiler number 1. In order to see the boiler water level in one of our steam boilers, you have to use the sight glass on the boiler water column. This line here on the water column is our low water level. There's a line across our low water lockout pump control, which is what this device is on our water column. If your water level in this sight glass right here is below this line, then you're in low water, okay? If your water level in your boiler is above that line and up to this middle tricock location, then I like to call this area okay, the water level's okay, and then right in the middle I like to call it good, okay? The water level's good, it's acceptable. It needs to be above this line, but not too high. If our water level is sighted in the sight glass all the way up at the top, up by the top tricock location, then your water level would be recorded as high. It's a high water level. We literally want to note in our logbook the physical water level we view while we're doing our inspection. So I'm going to inspect the water level. This is my low water lockout line. I'm going to line my pen right up with that line and line it up with the sight glass. My water level in this boiler is up here. That is above my low water line. So we know he's not low, okay? So I'm going to describe that water level, which is up here by my pen, as good, okay? So I'm physically going to write what I see on this sight glass in the boiler logbook. I'm going to write it down. It's good. My water level on this boiler is good. And now the record says boiler water level in boiler number 2. So we're going to now go to boiler number 2 and record its boiler water level for the day. Boiler number 2 sight glass, low water, hold our pen up. We find that our water level is all the way at the top by tricock number 1, which is our high water tricock, way up high. And this boiler is going to be described as high water level. So we're literally going to write high in our logbook, right under boiler number 2, high. The next inspection on our boiler logbook is test our low water lockout control on our steam boiler. Boiler number 1, this is boiler number 1. This is our low water lockout control and pump control. In order to test our low water lockout, we have to blow down our water column. When we blow down our water column, we're going to lower the water level inside of this pump control and water lockout, and we're going to trip the boiler out to ensure that he locks out on low water. So we're going to do our test right now. We start by doing it slowly. Don't do it fast. We're going to slowly open this valve and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our pump control just locked out, and we have a red light showing on our boiler now. That means that the boiler just locked out on low water. So we are literally going to write that in our book. Test low water lockout, boiler number 1. Did we do that? And the answer is yes, we did. So we're going to write yes under boiler number 1. Okay, and now we're going to test the low water lockout control on boiler number 2. There's an important point you must remember about testing your low water lockout controls. We need to have the boilers running when this test is performed. When we do our lockout, and we trip the boiler should shut down and the red light should come on. So here we go, boiler number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the boiler locked out. The red light came on and the boiler just shut down. As soon as you trip the boiler, you should replace the lever back to closed. The test is over. When you replace the lever back to closed, the red light's going to turn off. The boiler is now going to go through a process of starting back up. And we want to verify that it does start back up. The next inspection on our steam boiler logbook is flush water column. This is our water column right here. On our water column, we have our low water lockout pump control, our sight glass, our tricox. This whole line right here is our water column. This valve right here is our water column blowdown valve. This allows us to test our low water lockout, also allows us to flush the water column. So the question on this logbook is flush water column, boiler number 1. This is boiler number 1. And the answer is we already flushed the water column. In order to do our low water lockout test, we opened this valve to blow down the water column. So we actually accomplished both these requirements at the same time. And then we are going to simply dictate to our log that yes, we flushed the water column on boiler number 1. So that would be in our logbook written down as a yes, I flushed the water column. That is correct. Then boiler number 2, flush the water column. We have already done the low water lockout test on boiler number 2, which means we also flushed our water column on boiler number 2. So we're going to add that to our logbook as well. Yes, we did boiler number 2. The next inspection that we're going to cover on our boiler logbook is flush the city feeder. Our city feeder on our steam boiler is located on the opposite side of the boiler from the sight glass. The city feeder allows makeup water to come into our boiler from the city. We're going to blow this water column down with our city feeder in order to make sure that sediment doesn't build up in our column or that debris clogs up our city feeder. So for this inspection, all we're going to do is we're going to blow it down. We have a blowdown valve below our city feeder. We're going to blow it down for 5 seconds. Remember, when you open up your blowdown valves, to do it slowly and do a count to 5. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to close it back up. Now the thing about our city feeders are, they have a low water lockout control on them as well. It is Maryland state law or boiler law that our steam boilers have to have 2 low water lockout controls on them. One's an automatic reset and the other one's a manual reset. On our water column here for our city feeder, the low water lockout is a manual reset, okay? So on the back side of this control here, this is your low water lockout, there is a button. And you must physically push this button anytime you flush your city feeder out. We're going to push that button there, and that makes sure that we reset our low water lockout control. If you forget to press the button on the back of your low water lockout on your city feeder, your boiler will not restart and you will have no heat. So you must remember to reset the low water lockout. Once that is done, we're going to add that in our boiler logbook. Did we flush the city feeder to boiler number 1? The answer is yes. So we're going to add yes in our boiler logbook. Boiler number 2, city feeder. We're now going to blow down this one. Remember, do it slowly. Count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we're going to close it. And we're going to remember to reset our manual low water lockout control located at our city feeder. And that is now complete, boiler number 2. The next inspection required in our boiler log inspection process is inspect condensate feed pumps for leaks. This is our condensate receiver tank. All the condensate in the building comes back to this tank and stored here. On the side of the condensate receiver tank is our condensate feed pumps. The condensate feed pumps pump the water back to the boilers. They're located on the side. We're now going to visually inspect them for leaks. Now we're going to inspect our condensate feed pumps. This is pump number 1, this is pump number 2, and the one in the middle is pump number 3. He's a standby pump. If either one of those two pumps fail, then that won't be used. So this is pump 1, this is pump 2. Pump number 1, we visually inspect it. It's high and dry, it's not leaking. We're going to record that in our boiler logbook. Condensate feed pump number 1 is good, okay? Condensate feed pump number 2 though, we look at it, we see water on the ground next to it, we see all this rust here. Well, guess what? This pump was leaking, but the motor just got replaced. Now the motor's replaced, we see that it was leaking, but now it's not. So we're going to write in the logbook, it's good, but as of a few days ago, we would have wrote down leaking. And then that's how a work order got made to have it replaced. And now we're going to record our findings in the logbook for the condensate receiver pumps. The feed pump number 1, high and dry, is good. We're going to note that in our log. Good. Condensate feed pump number 2 is not leaking at this time, so he's good. The next inspection in our boiler logbook is the boiler an alarm? We need to record every day the findings that we find with our boilers. One of the findings are your boilers an alarm when you came in the morning to do your inspection? Our alarms are right here. We have a low water lockout alarm and we have a flame failure alarm. If this boiler locks out on alarm, one of these two lights will light up red. So we're going to physically inspect it or visually inspect it in the morning. We look at it, neither light is lit up on boiler number 1 or boiler number 2. So in our logbook, we're going to write down boiler and alarm. Boiler number 1, no, it's not an alarm. So we'll write that down in our logbook. No, it's not. Boiler number 2. Boiler number 2, an alarm, yes or no? The answer is no. Neither light's lit up, the boiler's not an alarm. So we're going to write that down. Boiler number 2, no, not an alarm. Okay, everybody, remember, if you find your boiler an alarm in the morning, one of the two lights is lit up red, you can reset your boiler. Okay, the reset is inside the control panel on our boiler control. You can reset the boiler by pressing this button. You can only reset the boiler one time in a day. If the boiler locks back out, you need to make a work order. The next inspection we're required to do in our boiler log process is visually inspect our boiler safety valve. On our steam boiler, our boiler safety valve is located at the top of the boiler and is that large gray valve top up there. It is the most important valve on a steam boiler. We must inspect it every day to make sure that it's not opening. We want to make sure it's not leaking or anything of that nature. When it is working correctly, it should be doing nothing. It should be sitting there perfectly idle. It is a safety device. Okay, off the side of the safety valve is a vent line. If that valve opens, hot water and steam will come through the valve, come down the vent line, and the vent line places down towards the floor. So to visually inspect our safety valve, we're going to physically look at it, make sure it's not doing anything. We don't want to see it jumping, chattering, making noises. And then we're going to follow the vent line all the way to the floor, and we're going to look to see if it's dripping, leaking, or moving steam out. The correct thing it should be doing is nothing. Okay, boiler number 1, vent pipe, all the way down at the floor. We observe it. It is not leaking, no steam, no water. That means that our safety valve isn't doing anything, and that is good. We're going to add that in our boiler logbook under boiler number 1, safety valve, visually inspected, and we're going to say it is good. However, if we do observe that it's leaking, a slight drip, 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 that doesn't mean that it's an emergency. That's just something we will note in our logbook. Is it good? If it's doing nothing, it's good. Is it leaking, dripping? We'll write it in the logbook. Is it dripping? Is it leaking? But if it was opening, the valve at the top would start chattering. It would start throwing steam out down the bottom. That is bad. If we find that our valve is opening, then we would shut the boiler down and we would call the boiler plant boiler operation guys down at the 900 shop and make sure that they know that we have a problem with the safety valve on this boiler, and we would put in a work order and a boiler technician will come out and take it from there. But we need to physically write down in our logbook what we observe with the safety valve every day. All right guys, boiler number 2. We are going to visually inspect our boiler safety valve. Boiler safety valve up top, boiler number 2, not doing anything. We follow the vent line all the way down to the floor and we look, and there's a little tiny drip of water here. Just a little tiny drip. That doesn't mean it's opening. All that means is he's got a tiny drip. You can note that in your logbook, and day after day you can see whether it starts to leak more and more. This is just so that you can trend your boiler. If the leak gets worse, then in the future you can make a work order about it. But we're going to put that in our logbook now. Boiler number 2, visually inspect boiler safety valve. Yes, and it's good. The next item we're going to discuss on the boiler logbook is our monthly bottom blowdown procedure for a steam boiler. You do a monthly bottom blowdown on these boilers per water analysis or your boiler technician that comes around to your building. If your boiler technician says, yes, I want you to blow this boiler down once a month, we would do our once a month boiler blowdown, okay? Before you start your boiler blowdown, it's important that you turn your boiler off, okay? And we look at our pressure gauge on our boiler. We want to verify that our pressure goes to 0 psi when we do this test. So the boiler's not firing, the pressure has come down all the way to 0. Now it is safe to perform our bottom blowdown on this boiler. Okay, now we're physically going to perform the bottom blowdown. This is our bottom blowdown valve. We're going to open it slowly and count to 5. Go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And shut him back down. And it's only safe to do this once you turn your boiler off and let it cool down. Now we blew down the boiler, we're going to do boiler number 2. And now we're going to do boiler number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to close them down. Okay, and now that we've completed our boiler blowdown procedure, we're going to record that in our boiler logbook. This is your monthly boiler blowdown record box located at the top of your steam boiler logbook. Once you've completed your steam boiler blowdown for the month, you need to fill it out. We'd put the date in here. This is March the 3rd, and then add your name. I'm going to fill my name in as Teddy. And just write it right in. And that makes a record of when I did my blowdown on this set of boilers. I performed the bottom blowdown today. Now the record is ready for next month. The next inspection that we're going to be required to do here at Prince George's County is inspect our fuel oil tank oil level on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We're going to stick the tank. And to help me with this is Mr. Beach. Mr. Beach is going to stick the tank for us. So the first thing he's going to do, he's going to open the tank up. He's going to pop the top. He's going to pull his oil top up. And then he's going to stick his measuring stick all the way down into the tank. Until it hits bottom. It's important to let it down slowly. Don't just drop your stick. It'd be a shame if you dropped the stick down there and for some reason the stick broke. So just drop it down there and then we're going to pull it back up. Okay, when we pull it back up, we can see an oil level on the stick. We can turn it around and we can read the inches of oil. We're at 26 inches of oil in this tank. Then Mr. Beach is going to wipe the stick down to get the oil off of his stick. And then he's going to just go ahead and close up his tank. Then we're going to go inside and we're going to record our boiler water oil level in our logbook. It says record oil level Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Today we're doing the inspection for our video. So we're going to put our inches of oil in the book. We had 26 inches, so we wrote 26 in the book. And now we're going to have to turn 26 into how many gallons. That requires our tank chart book, okay? We're going to open our tank chart book up and we're going to find our oil tank to this building. We have an 8,000 gallon tank, 96 inches around. All we have to do now that we found our tank is find the inches of oil on this list, which we had 26 inches, and then we go straight across, and that's how many gallons of oil we have. 1,753 gallons. We're going to write that in the book. 1,753. And that's how we have now completed our tank oil readings for our logbook. All right, everybody, the next inspection we're going to do on our boiler logbook is inspect our fuel pumps to our boilers. These are our oil pumps, okay? Pump number 1 is running, okay? Pump number 2 is in standby. In order to check our pump, we already know pump number 1 is working. We're just going to take our switch here and change it from auto to off to on pump number 2. Pump number 2 runs as well. We're not going to forget, we're going to put it back in the auto position. We only need one pump running at a time. Okay, so pump number 2 works. The answer is yes, he does. And we also want to look. We want to make sure that there's no leaks from our pumps, no oil leaks, nothing strange, that the pumps work correctly. They're running, we see no leaks, and then we're going to record in our boiler logbook, fuel oil pump number 1 operational. He's running. Yes, it's operational. We're going to write it in our logbook, yes. Oil pump number 2, we just tested it, we turned him on. He's not leaking any oil and he runs. Fuel oil pump number 2 operational? The answer is yes, he is. So we're going to write that in the book, yes. And that will complete our oil pump inspection. The next inspection we have to do is inspect our air compressor. Make sure that you turn the power off to your air compressor before you start this inspection. For your safety, you must turn the power off. The air compressor inspection has a few questions. Okay, it asks, check the oil level on the compressor. This is an air compressor, okay? On the side of the compressor, there's a dip switch, dipstick. We're going to pull the dipstick out. We're going to take a rag. We're going to clean the dipstick off so it's clean. We're going to stick the dipstick back into the compressor, pull it back out, and then we're going to look at our oil level. On this compressor, the oil level is full. It's actually high. It's over the mark where it should be. So we're going to note that in our logbook. We're going to note it as oil level is high, okay? In order to lower the oil level, we would have to drain some oil out of this compressor. That's something that can be addressed after our inspection. If you find that the oil level is low inside of your air compressor on your oil inspection, you're going to fill only non-detergent motor oil into your air compressor to fill it up with some oil. You cannot use any other oil than a non-detergent motor oil or compressor oil for these air compressors. The next thing that the logbook asks us to check is our air filter on our boiler, on our air compressor. Our air filter is located right here on the side of the compressor. The air comes into the air filter, and it's important that it's clean. In order to check it, we just spun the little cap here, opens it up, and I can physically inspect my air filter. That air filter is dirty. It is poor. This air filter needs to be replaced. We found this on the inspection, so now I'll place it back in there until I get my replacement air filter, which now that I found that it's dirty, I know to order a new one. The next inspection that the log asks us to do with the air compressor is check our pulley, okay, our belt and pulley. Belt and pulley is located inside this cage right here. In order to check it, we want to make sure it's not loose. We want to make sure it's not broken. We want to make sure there's not any pits or cracks in it. We're going to visually look at it. So I like to take my flashlight, visually look at my belt. I take an item like a screwdriver, I put it through the cage, and I check the tension of the belt. This belt's getting a little bit loose. He's getting worn down. I can see wear and tear on him. He's not a new belt. He's not failed, but on my log, I'm gonna dictate this belt as poor. He's poor. He's ready to be replaced. So we're gonna add that on our log. And then the last thing that our boiler log is asking us to do is bleed the moisture from our air compressor. Our moisture is bled through this blowdown valve on the bottom of the tank. On this particular boiler, we have an automatic blowdown. So just to test him and make sure that he's working, that's a little black button. I'm going to press it. No water came out, just air. This is working correctly. If you do not have an automatic blowdown on your boiler, you would open the handle manually. And that completes our air compressor inspection for our boiler logbook. When you are done your air compressor inspection, do not forget to turn your air compressor disconnect back on to power your air compressors. If you forget to do that, your air compressor will not come back on and run. Okay, and now that we are finished with our air compressor and our logbook, this completes the boiler log process. At the end of the boiler log, I need you to sign your name under the sign spot. So sign your name, who completed the log, and then make sure that you replace your boiler logbook back on the wall of your boiler room so that the logbook is accessible for anybody who needs to see the log for any reason, and it'll be ready for you to use again tomorrow.